You ready? Good evening. We will call to order the regular board meeting of the Washington Township School Board. Today is June 12th. Let the record show that all 5 board members are present, and we will begin this meeting like we do all others with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay. Excuse me. First up on the agenda, we have June recognitions. Dr. Kaiser. Oh, you're
Thank
ready.
you, Dr. Taylor, President George Davis, members of the board. I am happy to share with you that we have a very full slate of recognitions this evening, beginning with, if I can have Maddie Rocchio please join Dr. Taylor up at the front, please. We are congratulating Maddie as a 2024 NC graduate who just won the Female Athlete of the Year at North Central and also won the Marion County Female Athlete of the Year. Maddie is a cross-country and track standout. She will attend Indiana University in the fall. The Indy Star did a story on Maddie, so please be sure to check that out. And Maddie's head coach, Mr. Chad Wallace, Chad, stand to be recognized, please, if you would, is also in attendance this evening. To join us in this celebration. Thank you for being here, Maddie. We are extremely proud of your accomplishments and we wish you the best at IU.
Mr. Wallace, can you come up for the
Wallace, you got to come up for the picture. Yeah.
That's okay. Yes, I think, well, he's there. Yes.
At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Brian Ramirez to join Dr. Taylor at the front, please. Mr. Brian Ramirez is assistant principal at Northview Middle School and has been selected as the IASP District 7 Assistant Principal of the Year. District 7 represents all of Marion County, Indiana. Mr. Ramirez's leadership has been instrumental in Northview's recent academic gains over the last 2 years, as well as special selection for the Indiana Department of Education Excellence in Leading and Learning Award last fall, which is a statewide award. IASP District Assistant Principals of the Year are elected by their peers. One assistant principal is honored from each of the 12 districts across the state of Indiana. And from these 12 districts or assistant principal winners, one is chosen as the 2024 Indiana Assistant Principal of the Year. And the state winner will be announced at the IASP Award celebration in November of 2024. Congratulations to Mr. Ramirez on this statewide recognition. He is one of the reasons that today, like every day, is a great day to be a Falcon.
Congratulations.
Well deserved.
You gotta get the family. Tom. Family.
Oh, yes.
Let's go, fam. There it is. Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Michael Logan, as represented by his mother, Kathy Logan, or Officer Jalen Gamble, and Ms. Tatum Parker to join Dr. Taylor at the front, please. Tonight, we're congratulating Mr. Michael Logan, Director of Athletics at Northview, our Officer Jalen Gamble, an MSDWT police officer, and Ms. Tatum Parker, who is recently teaching at Spring Mill Elementary, as they are recognized as being part of the 10 Under 10 2024 honorees. The 10 Under 10 award recognizes the accomplishments of 10 young alumni leaders who are less than 10 years past graduation. And we are recognizing 3 individuals here tonight as they are not only alumnus, but part of the MSDWT staff. You can see a full list of the honorees by visiting the WTS Foundation 10 under 10 complete list of honorees. Now we're going to read, oh, you're not done.
Oh, we're not done.
Get ready. Oh, there's individuals. Mr. Michael Logan is not only the director of athletics at NV, but he also wears many hats as the Panther Youth Sports Coordinator and Vice President of the Paul Logan Foundation. With a passionate dedication to fostering excellence in Washington Township athletics, he takes pride in providing student athletes with platforms to showcase their talents. Michael's commitment to community and sportsmanship shines through his multifaceted roles, ensuring that young athletes thrive on and off the field. Officer Jalen Gamble is a Washington Township Schools native who graduated from North Central in 2013. He pursued further education at the University of St. Francis, where he graduated with a degree in sociology with dual concentrations in criminology and social justice, along with a minor in diversity studies and an associate's degree in criminal justice. While at the University of St. Francis, Jalen was a member of the football team when they won back-to-back national championships. And after graduating, Jalen found his way back to NC by way of coaching, getting involved in rugby and football for several years. During this time, Jalen transitioned to a role in the building, first as a study hall IA, and then he was ultimately then hired, trained, and sworn in as one of our Washington Township SROs, where he is currently employed. Ms. Tatum Parker is a 2-time cancer survivor and co-founder of the Tatum Parker Project. The nonprofit she helped establish in 2008 focuses on bringing joy to children facing cancer in Indiana. Through their efforts, they distribute backpacks filled with games, toys, and other activities to children battling cancer in Indiana to keep them busy throughout their long hospital stays. The nonprofit also donates money and raises awareness for pediatric cancer research, having donated over $100,000 to date. Tatum is a recent graduate of Indiana University, receiving her Bachelor's of Science in Elementary Education. Following her passion for working with children, she has been teaching in the district at Spring Mill Elementary recently, and I'm sure will come back to us one day. Congratulations again to each of you for your many successes thus far, and congratulations to all of the honorees on the list. Now you can go.
He's on vacation.
Over a year ago.
Thank you.
At this time, I would like to ask Mr. David Carrican and Ms. Ann Kosabud to join Dr. Taylor at the front. We are recognizing these 2 members of the MSDWT family who have supported our French exchange work at North Central High School over the last 9 years. They have lived in the district for over 20 years and have had 2 sons go through Washington Township schools, and this was brought to our attention by Mrs. Jill Thrasher Reed. So thank you, Jill. She came to know that David Carrican speaks French through his communication with Habib Diatta, who had an older son in his class. At back to school night, he mentioned to Mr. Diatta that he had spent time in Luxembourg and would be interested in traveling with a group if that opportunity arose. When it came time to travel to France in 2017, the planning for which started in 2016, we needed a second chaperone, and David was willing and able to fill that role, guiding students to a memorable experience in their homestay location and in Paris. He even got to help a student get a new passport after hers was stolen. His appreciation for the French language and culture also contributed to this past spring's successful trip. As a parent and a fluent French speaker, he was able not only to serve as a sounding board for professional discussions, but also as a listener for students and someone who could provide a different perspective than a teacher. He conscientiously attended pre-departure meetings with students both years and worked with them to learn the language and culture before and during the trip. And COSABUD has also played an important role in our ongoing exchange program as well. When the group of 3 teachers and 25 students came to Indianapolis from France, she and David hosted all 3 teachers in their home in 2017, 2019, and 2023. This allows the teachers a much-needed space together to discuss any issues that come up, to make plans, and for the next leg of their trip, and to be as comfortable as they would be if they were at home. Additionally, both Anne and David help with carpooling French students to their field trips and with navigating bureaucratic red tape when any sort of medical issues arise. Apparently, there's a lot of broken legs. I don't know what that means. The bureaucratic red tape happens and they work through it. In short, the exchange program that North Central High School has with Camille Say High School in Colmar, France, would not be the same without their dedication and willingness to help however they can. Their friendship and care for students and teachers is truly a gift. Thank you again for your ongoing support of North Central High School and the French language exchange program. You are both truly appreciated. Yeah, Jill. Yep. And finally, I'm going to ask our professional partners from Messer Construction, Powers and Sons, Schmidt Associates, and Marvin Murdoch from MBM Construction Services to join Dr. Taylor at the front at this time, along with Mr. Boots. On behalf of the entire district, we would like to take this opportunity to extend our heartfelt appreciation for your exceptional contributions to the construction of the beautiful new Northview Middle School. Get it, Tommy? Your dedication and expertise in design and construction services have had a profound impact on our facilities, benefiting the students of Washington Township for generations to come. Your work with the district has been valued. The precision, problem-solving, and unwavering commitment to excellence that you have demonstrated have been crucial in the success of this project. We recognize the complexities inherent in new construction projects, and your adeptness at navigating these with professionalism and skill has been truly admirable. Your passion for your work is evident in every endeavor, and it has been a pleasure to collaborate with your talented and dedicated teams. Your contributions have been pivotal in shaping the future of our district, and for that, we are sincerely grateful. Thank you once again to the Schmidt, Powers and Sons, and Messer teams for your exceptional work and steadfast commitment to excellence. We would also like to extend our appreciation to our project manager and consultant, Mr. Marvin Murdoch, who has been MSDWT's project liaison throughout the construction of this project. We are truly grateful for the community's support in both 2016 and 2020 that provided this optimal opportunity for our students. The school community is bursting with excitement to begin operating in their new building this next school year. Thank you to you all. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Keep bumping them.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Hey, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Oh, no.
Say, we've done this a few times.
I
New
know.
house.
I know.
Yes, hi. Oh. You guys are messing it up. Thanks again.
President George Davis, this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Ooh, lots of good things happening here. I like it. Next, we have superintendent's announcements. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, President George Davis, members of the board. Dr. Woodson apologizes for her absence this evening, but she needed to support a family medical matter, so I was happy to fill in upon her request tonight. A few reminders regarding cultural and national observances for the 23-24 calendar year. You have updates for the month of June there for your review. A reminder regarding the special board meeting scheduled for Wednesday, June 26th at 8 a.m. here at CEC to approve the consent agenda hires and key administrator recommendations. If you recall, we do that most summers to ensure that we get our new hires on board and ready to go in July, because July is a very busy time for onboarding our staff. So we also have attached there, you have 3 attachments for the 24-25 school year assessment calendars. That's elementary, middle, and high school assessment calendars. And you'll note some changes evident in those assessment calendars. You have the biannual legal updates and insurance claims review. That's attachments 5, 9, and 10. And then some exciting news with regard to end of year enrollment. We finished the year with 10,757 students. That's nearly a 200 student increase from our fall ADM. So we're celebrating that. We also are celebrating the onboarding of our new elementary literacy adoption. That's Amplify. There's a board memo there from Mr. Blom. So you know kind of our current status update and then what the plan is for full implementation. So you have both those attachments there for your review. We are excited that materials are in. Staff do have access to those materials because we have a lot of teachers who enjoy planning. Let me say, I don't know about enjoy planning, but like to get ahead in their planning in the summer, as well as we have nearly 50% of our elementary staff already trained. And so that remaining percent will get trained when we come back here in July. High school redesign information, that's attachment 8. Really encourage you to look into that newsletter. Talks about some of the critical feedback relative to the new high school diploma redesign implications for GPS diploma and GPS diploma plus. And so some good information in there relative to some of the criticism received, and as well as some feedback from Dr. Jenner. And then finally, we have a kudos for adult ed staff there for your review as well. And that concludes superintendent announcements, and I'll turn it back over to President George Davis if there are no other questions.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Next, we will have the approval of the consent agenda. Dr. Kaiser. Oh, whoops, not yet. Next, we will have comments from the public. Just keep in mind that all comments will not go beyond 21 minutes, and each person gets 3 minutes and may not speak on the same topic twice unless everybody has had an opportunity to speak. And remember, we talk issues. We do not have disparaging comments against people. Comments from the public. Hearing none, Dr. Kaiser, consent agenda.
Thank you, President George Davis and members of the board. I recommend that you approve the consent agenda for this meeting. The consent agenda for this meeting includes approval of the minutes of the May 15th, 2024 board meeting, approval of 2 payroll calculation summary reports, a claims docket in the amount of $10,129,808.96, a human resources report containing classified personnel with 3 new hires, numbers 247 to 249, 46 resignations, numbers 163 to 208, 10 retirements, numbers 13 through 22, 4 terminations, number 33 through 36, and 6 leaves, number 1 through 6. Also includes certified personnel with 30 new appointments, numbers 3 through 32, 20 resignations, numbers 122 to 141, 2 retirements, numbers 10 and 11, and 1 transfer, number 18. There's also an approval to amend the July 24th through June 2025 July 2024, June 2025 school board meeting schedule, canceling the October 30th, 2024 school board meeting date due to the school board attending a national conference on this date. There is one non-competitive grant, grants, gifts, or donations to be presented for the board's approval, and that document has been provided in your board packet.
There are no questions. Madam President, I move we accept the consent agenda as presented by Dr. Kaiser.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Okay, we will now move, oh, you're still there. We will now move into our action items for this evening. The first is approval of a resolution for supplemental pay for building-based communication representatives as an additional duty.
Thank you. So once again, members of the board, I do come to you this evening seeking approval of a resolution for building-based communications representative as an additional duty. As you may be aware, we started these building-based communications representatives during the time that we had ESSER dollars to fund those. There are a small number of ESSER projects that we are now looking to fund via the general fund, and this is one of them. These provide building-based representatives to each of our buildings, and they, along with building administrators, work to send out messages via social media about what is happening in our schools, as well as the functioning of each school district's website to present events. Personally, I would share with you, I think the biggest impact that we've seen from this is often families are aware of what is happening in their school community that their child is involved with. And I feel like since we've moved to these communications reps, our families are much more aware of things that are happening in their child's school building that may not necessarily impact their child, but is happening at grade level before that they were not aware of, or a grade level after that their child will get to look forward to at some point in the future. And the feedback that we've gotten from families about these additional communications has been very good. So there will be one in each of our buildings with the exception of North Central High School. That position is split into 3, with one representative handling the social media accounts for the building as a whole, one representative handling athletics announcements, and then a third representative handling the website. There's just such a volume at North Central that there are 3 positions there. They receive training from communications folks that we work with here in the district on a regular basis throughout the course of the year to understand their job. And the total impact to the general fund is, I believe in your board documents, roughly $33,000 annually.
Are there any-
I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
If there are no questions, I move approval of a resolution for supplemental pay for building-based communication representatives as an additional duty as presented by Dr. Kaiser.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Next, we have approval of the MSDWT School Social Work Strategic Planning Consulting Contract Submission. Mrs. Hazlitt.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor, President George Davis, members of the board. I'm Crystal Hazlitt, Coordinator of Student Programs and Community Liaison for the district. I'm seeking approval of a contract between Washington Township Schools and Taylor Advising for the purpose of the development of a 3 to 5 year comprehensive strategic plan for Washington Township's School Social Work Department. Taylor Advising is an Indianapolis-based woman-owned business specializing in helping community leaders move bold ideas forward through a range of consulting services. This agency has a passion for supporting teams and projects focused on creating equitable outcomes for all. As stated, the specific project will focus on the development of a 3 to 5 year strategic plan that will guide the work of the school social work team. This work will occur over 4 phases as outlined in your proposal. The consultant will facilitate discussion with the school social work team and gather input from key stakeholders, such as our school counselors, school administrators, and district leaders. The consultant will research local and national high-performing organizations, teams, or school systems to explore best practices specifically related to the role of the school social worker and implementing social work practices within schools. The MSDWT School Social Work Team will engage in visioning and goal-setting sessions, resulting in the creation of a final strategic plan document that will include a summary of the team's 3 to 5 year strategic vision, key goals, and benchmarks to track and report annual progress. While the MSDWT School Social Work Team will engage in facilitated discussion and learning, this work will include intentional alignment with our school counselor colleagues, as well as input from school and district leaders to further strengthen the student services teams within our buildings. The total cost is $20,000, and the funding source is the one-time American Rescue Plan grant funds the district received following the pandemic. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Board, any questions?
Comment. So just as a FYI, I know Marla, and I knew her when she did work with a larger consulting firm, Indy, and built their strategic plan. And then she stepped out on her own to do it. And so I've known her from past work. So I really, it's pretty exciting to see that she's going to help us out here too.
I'm very excited that she agreed to do it, and I've worked alongside her as she's done some strategic planning for some other nonprofits, so I feel like we're very lucky.
If there are no further questions, I move that we approve the MSDWT social work planning consulting contract submission as presented by Mrs. Haslett.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Haslett. Next, we have approval of Hatching Results School Counseling Professional Learning Contract for 2024-25. Mrs. Dodson.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor. Good evening, President George Davis and school board members. Tonight, I'm here to seek your approval to move forward with an agreement for services with Hatching Results to provide professional learning to all Washington Township school counselors for a second year. Washington Township Schools, as you know, was recently awarded the IDOE's Student-Centered Support Award/grant to celebrate the work we've done and continue to support efforts in the development and implementation of comprehensive student supports. Our grant application, which was approved by the Washington Township School Board in February, was fully funded. This grant provides us with the opportunity to continue to provide our school counselors with the training they need to fully implement the Indiana model for comprehensive school counseling in Washington Township. The Washington Township contract with Hatching Results will be for a second year to provide in-person training to all school counselors and some school administrators, building on the work we began during the 23-24 school year. They will also provide in-person coaching and consultation with school and district leaders. The fee is all inclusive of presenter travel, supplemental books and materials. For additional information and details, please review the School Counseling PD Proposal 2425 document attached in your board docs. I would like to seek your approval to enter into the agreement for services with Hatching Results, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Board, any questions?
There are no questions. I move that we approve the Hatching Results School Counseling Professional Learning Contract as presented by Mrs. Dodson.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Dodson.
Congratulations on being funded.
Yes, that's awesome. Next, we have, oop, I did something funky. Approval of agreement with Origins to train teachers in developmental designs. Mr. Doss.
Good evening, President George Davis, members of the board, and Dr. Taylor. I'm here this evening seeking approval of an agreement with Origins to train middle school teachers and administrators in developmental designs. We've been training teachers and administrators in this process for over 10 years, so it's not something new. But, this particular program focuses on building teachers' toolboxes in the areas of classroom management, establishing classroom routines, relationship development, restorative practices, and developing community within the classroom using a DEI lens. And participants will take part in 4 full days of training and will be compensated with $600 stipends during that process. The contracted cost of the training and the teacher stipends will be paid for through Title IV funds Be happy to answer any questions that you might have related to this situation.
Board, any questions?
If there are no questions, I move that we approve the agreement with Origins to train teachers in developmental designs as presented by Mr. Doss.
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Doss. Next, we have the approval of the 2024-2025 STEM Integration Grant from the Indiana Department of Education. Mrs. Conti.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor, Dr. President George Davis, and members of the board. On Friday, June 7th, the Secondary Curriculum Division applied for the competitive STEM Integration Grant from the Indiana Department of Education, and we are waiting on acceptance, which should be coming at the end of June or early July. So I'm seeking approval to allocate the funds if we get accepted in the following way. It would allow for the expansion of the Project Lead the Way Biomedical Sciences pathway at North Central High School by funding the onboarding of the 4th course in the sequence, which is Biomedical Innovations. It would pay for materials and training at a cost of approximately $33,000. It would provide training and materials for the PLTW courses that are currently in place at North Central High School. That includes principles of biomedical sciences, human body systems, and medical interventions for approximately $54,000. It would also provide training and materials for Project Lead the Way's medical detectives courses at Wesleyan Middle School, Northview Middle School, and Eastwood Middle School for approximately $34,000. And it would allow us to provide additional mystery science packs for all 8 of the elementary schools for grades 4 and 5, and that would approximately be $4,000. For a total of $97,116. The grant cycle for this begins July 1 and goes through July 30th of 2025. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Mrs. Horth-Kruger.
Just a quick question. Well, a comment first. That's a very fast turnaround. Right?
They like to do that sometimes.
And you indicate that it's a competitive grant. Obviously it is, but is there a plan if unfortunately we aren't awarded the funds?
Yes. So the 4th course, which is the Biomedical Innovations, will onboard on the 25-26 school year, hopefully. We won't have enrollment there, but we can purchase the kits with the grant if we get it. If not, we can defer that for the following year. But currently, the director budget has PLTW funding, I think, in both middle school and high school. And in the elementary school, they have some funding allocated for PLTW and STEM. We also use Title IV for materials, and then we use Title II for all training. Project Lead the Way has training guarantees, I think is what they're called. So if we train a teacher and pay for it and they leave within 3 years, they will pay for that, a new replacement to be trained. So we use that. And they also have training grants, and the training guarantees generally pay for everything. So you won't see a lot of training in these grants. It's just kind of getting as many materials as we can, but we can pay through that through Title IV, which is how we've traditionally done it.
Great. Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, I move for the approval of the 2024-2025 STEM Integration Grant from the Indiana Department of Education as presented by.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Conti.
Thank you.
Next, we have the approval of a first reading of policies D100, D125, D150, D175, D200, G125, G150, G275, G375, G425. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Taylor, members of the board, I bring to you this evening the first reading for the policies just named, and I'll brief over these for you for clarity. D100 is district organization, and this replaces policy 1100, and this is a required policy. Policy D125 is the evaluation of the superintendent, And this replaces policy 1240 and is required by Indiana code. Policy D150, board superintendent relationship. This replaces policy 1210. And the law, even though the law does not require this policy, but it's based on the law and it's customary to have. Next one is policy D175. This is board staff communications. This replaces policies 3112 and 4112. And this is an optional policy, but creates structure within the district. Next, we have policy D200, status standard of care of supervision of students. This replaces policies 1613, 3213, 4213, and 8660. And this is a requirement of 2020 title regulations. Next is policy G125, criminal organization activities. This replaces policies 5518, 5840. And this is, policy is required to be posted in the student handbook. So we'll check with TNL to ensure that it does get placed in there or is already in there. And this is required by Indiana code. Next, we have G150, registered sex or violent offenders. And this replaces policy 8470 is required by law. Next, we have policy G275, animals on school property. And this replaces policies 8390 and is also required by law. And it also has a form attached, service animal registration form. Next, we have G375, use of school facilities. And this replaces policy 7510, 7510.01, and 7550. And this is required, and there's associated forms and terms and conditions also attached. Next, we have, last but not least, is G425, Pledge of Allegiance and Moments of Silence. And this replaces policy 8800. As you can tell, looking through your board docs, these are pretty extensive. There was a lot of options and things that we could choose. So we are still soliciting feedback from administrators and the board on anything. So if anything would change from this first reading to the second reading, I will definitely highlight those at our July board meeting for everyone. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Board, any questions?
If there are no further questions, I move that we approve the first readings of policies D100, D125, D150, D175, D200, G125, G150, G275, G375, G425 as presented by Mrs. Smith.
I'll second.
Been moved and properly second. Any discussion?
Make my discussion point.
I was about to say, Ms. Fry.
Awesome live stream. There are a couple of us on the board who are on a committee with Mrs. Smith. We have indeed read these, vetted them, discussed them, and I know it's like a lot of numbers. Even if they're voting, I promise you, I've read them, discussed them, and we do.
Lots of work involved.
Did we get a
That's my
second?
discussion.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. You're still there. Approval of rainy day resolution, bad debt, unpaid meals.
Sure. Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Taylor, members of the board. I bring to you this evening a rainy day resolution and wanted to give you some background on this particular one. For bad debt, unpaid meals, this is whatever was left over after the last 12 to 18 months that families may have negative balances in their meal balances. As you recall, over the last couple of years, we kind of changed how we did our meals. We had some that when they went into a negative balance and they were given alternative meals, we as a district decided, no, we do not want to do that. We want to be able to still provide a full meal, regular meal for those families. So that was one change that we made. The other was information that we required from the state that we received between the Child Nutrition Office and also our State Board of Accounts, that after debt is considered a bad debt, which is established by the district, Usually that's a year to a year and a half, depending on what we decide to put in our admin guidelines. Once it's considered a bad debt, the Child Nutrition Fund, which is a federal regulated grant fund, can no longer support those negative balances, and they must be funded through other means. In this case, our balances have grown to over $145,000. Now, background on that, we have taken measures where we've used donations from others in community and our Washington Township Schools Foundation to help offset some of those balances. For anyone, we did like a priority order. Anyone that was free and reduced, those would be the first priority of relieving that. Once they were approved from the state, if they had any previous balances, then we were able to support those balances, those negative balances. And then we moved on from there. And we've come to this point where now we are at the end of this year, and we have in upwards over $140,000 in bad debt. So you'll see my next item that we'll be talking about for changes for next year. And to start out that year fresh, we would like to be able to utilize our rainy day funds to offset this negative balance and to fund these negative balances in our district. Just to give you a little context of our rainy day fund, that might be helpful for the board and the public. Our rainy day fund was established in 2006. And from that time, you're able to transfer unused funds, any excess funds into that rainy day. So that isn't extra tax money or anything that's raised. It's just any additional balances that were left in accounts that we're able to move to that to establish this rainy day that we can utilize according to the board's wishes. And throughout the years from, I would say, 2007 through 2018, the district utilized various deposits that were made into the rainy day fund, and then utilized that for our security team and miscellaneous stipends throughout those years for staff during rate increases and things like that we were able to do. Since then, we have in 2019, we used for stipends. From 2020 on, we have not utilized any of our rainy day funds, and our current balance is over $13 million. And just to give you context of what that means for our district, for a district our size, you look at our balances or our budgets in our education fund and our our operations fund. Those are our two main funds for the district. To calculate the percentage, just to a normal percentage in rainy day is about 5% of that is what is customary to have in your rainy day fund. 10% is good. 15% is excellent. We here at Washington Township have a 15% cash balance in our rainy day fund. That is the reason why we're asking the board to utilize some of those rainy day funds to help with this negative balance in our child nutrition unpaid meals accounts. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding this.
Mr. Fensel?
I'm wondering if our change in policy has caused that balance to go up. Do we feel like some people would use that change in policy to obtain lunch?
I think that might be. I think it's a lot of different variables. I think it was COVID. After COVID, I think it was our change. In the past, when we did those alternative meals, we charged them a reduced amount. Even though they had a negative balance, we'd put that on there. But now the difference between a reduced alternative meal and a regular meal could be a couple dollars. So, that adds up fast, but I just think it's the times nowadays. I think it's our community and hardships that people are experiencing. And I think that's all those combined has attributed to this balance. And we will be watching that closely, and I'll talk a little bit more on that on the next item, unless you would have more questions that I can answer.
There are no further questions. I move approval of the rainy day resolution regarding bad debts and unpaid meals as presented by Mrs. Smith.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have the approval of the rainy day resolution for community eligibility provision.
Yes. Yes, we'll give you a little context to this one also. We have been analyzing over the last couple years if the district would qualify for what's called Community Eligibility Provision, CEP. And what that is, it's it's a plan through the child nutrition through the state and federal government that gives you a disbursement based on the number of your direct certifications of families that apply for and qualify for that direct certification. Upon that, we have a percentage that we have throughout our district. Every school has a percentage, then you kind of do an average percentage altogether. When you offer CEP, it would mean that those grades or those schools that you offer the CEP to would get free breakfast and lunch for those students. So upon this analyzing over the last couple years, our percentage has gone up. The true percentage for us to break even with the disbursement is about 63 to 64%. We're about 10% less than that, even though we feel that it would be now is the best time for us to go to that type of program for our grades K through 8. And with that, that would mean that anything that we would not get dispersed through the state, then we would have to fund, just like we just did with our bad debt. So we would have to fund the difference of what it would cost for that meal, what it costs for the food, and what the disbursement that we get from the state. We're anticipating that could range anywhere from $50,000 to $400,000, depending on how many parents qualify and get closer to that 64%. After the 64%, then we're definitely in the green. But up to that point, it just depends on how many families qualify during that year. So that's why it could range from that $0 to $50,000 all the way up to $400,000. So that's why we are applying for that, and it's a 4-year application, even though we can withdraw whenever we want. So if we do this for a year and it comes out too much that the district would have to fund, then we could back out of that. But in this resolution, we are asking the board for approval to utilize rainy day funds for whatever that gap is to help supplant that difference, supplement that amount that we will not get from the state. And like I said, it could range. It's something that it's a calculation that the state does. So that's why we can go with an estimate right now, but that could change on a regular basis, meaning every month it could change, and that amount could end up changing by the end of the year. So that's what we are asking for. That's why we kind of wanted to wipe out the bad debt, that we considered bad debt, start fresh from K through 8, and those families would all get the free breakfast and lunch. Our high school would not be included in that. We did a lot of analysis with that, with those included, and that pulled our percentage down even more. And we would have to supplement another almost $200,000 to $300,000 for that. So that's why we are bringing to the board for the consideration of K through 8, and then leaving the high school at their regular status of pay and free and reduced, and however that works at the high school level. I know that's a lot of information, so I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I do have Mr. Bowles here with me this evening to also help if there's something that I cannot answer.
Mr. Funsel?
I'm thinking of the first year. The first year could be 50 to 400,000, and then it'd be reevaluated, and perhaps our percentage would go up to that mid-60s or something. And
correct. They look at that every year. So what we're asking the board for is approval for each of the next 4 years of up to that amount.
And is it up to the 400,000 annually, or is
Yes,
it up to the?
annually.
Okay, 400,000 for the 4 years.
Do we anticipate that? No, but I can't say that for sure. So because these are estimates that they give us, and then that amount changes every single month when they redo the.
And we could back away if we so chose after.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Can I just make a comment?
Yep, please.
It's really not a question because I'm very excited to see this.
Mhm.
I mean, I know the CEP has been something you've
Yes.
worked on for
Yes.
a while now.
Yes.
And I know it's something that the district has been talking about
Yes.
for many years. So I'm excited that we're
Mhm.
finally able to move forward. I'm also excited because I appreciate that we looked at this and we said, well, you know, with where we're at right now, we might not quite break even, but we were willing to say, hey, but it makes sense. And there are options that we can, you know, close that gap. And lastly, I appreciate it because even though, yes, you know, we're going to have to use a little bit to close that gap, in addition to all of our kids being just fed equally without problems, I think it's going to be great in our schools because it's just that much less administrative, that much less teachers and
Agree.
cafeteria staff and things are having to deal with. So I think, you know, it's always great when we do anything that makes our staff's days even a little bit easier. And I appreciate your commitment to figuring out how to make this work because I know CEP's been a radar for a long time.
And our operations directors and our food service child nutrition supervisor has been instrumental in gathering this data and us working together as a team to be able to analyze this over the last couple of years and watch those figures and come up with a board.
I think just for the record too, that we believe that there's a population of our community who would qualify for free and reduced lunch if they applied, but we are not successful in contacting them or getting them the correct information. As much as we're trying, and this would take care of that group of people. And we feel like that group of people is also potentially high percentage of the people we're sending to collections, which we don't want to be doing. So while this provides free meals for everyone, maybe some that don't need it, we do believe there's a percentage of people that definitely need it that we're having trouble contacting. We can take care of it.
Are you suggesting that when a school district gets literally hundreds of new non-English speaking families in a year, that it's hard to actually help them understand the bureaucracy of applying for free and reduced lunch? Shocking.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was sarcasm. You already heard my comment, though. I'm very excited.
I have one quick,
Ms. Horth-Kruger?
I'm not. So can you tell us a little bit about what the application process is to be involved in or to secure the community eligibility provision? And is this something that once you apply, you have all your ducks in a row and it's pretty much assured that you'll be approved?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very simple application.
Oh, good.
Once you hit 40% of your population being directly certified, then you're eligible, and the state pretty much approves you because you're under the understanding that you as a district are covering those funds, that gap between 40% to the 62%, 63% that breaks even. We have not, although we are like 50s, we have not felt comfortable going with the 40, even though we were above 40, we didn't feel comfortable doing that because that was going to be a lot of money on us. But now that we're hovering closer to that 50, the state says 55%, you may start to break even. And we're right there. It's the 62 where they more guarantee it that you are in the green, but there's so many variables like Smith pointed out. There's also a huge amount of variable that has to do with participation. More kids that are eating and taking the lunch, more reimbursement we get. And we see usually an increase in participation once you go CEP versus now. So there's just so much that it's hard to predict, which is why that range that she's proposing for the rainy days. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll entertain a motion.
There are no further questions. I move that we approve the rainy day resolution for the community eligibility program for all of our elementary and middle schools as presented by Mrs. Smith.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Next, we have the approval of student meal prices for the 2024-2025 school year. Mr. Bowles.
Thank you. It's very exciting. That's like 3 years worth of work there. Very, very exciting. Good evening, President George Davis, Dr. Taylor, members of the board. I'm here this evening to request approval for student meal prices for 2024 and 25 school year. The PLE, which is the paid lunch equity requirement, is set by the Department of Education School Finance. And they requiring for this next school year that the lunch price be above, the average lunch price be above $3.85. Because we have a positive balance in our child nutrition funds, we meet the requirements for an exemption from that pricing requirement, which just allows us some flexibility in how much we want to increase those prices. So because of the exemption, we, Child Nutrition, recommend the following meal prices for this coming school year. And due to the motion that was just passed, this will only apply to high school now. So paid breakfast will be, students who are paid, breakfast will be $2. Last year it was $1.50. Students on reduced meals will pay 30 cents for breakfast. Paid lunch will be $3. Last year it was $2.65. And then the reduced lunch will be 40 cents for those on reduced lunch. Obviously, like I had said, given the information presented on earlier on CEP, the elementary and middle school students will not be paying for meals. And this will only apply to high school students. Happy to answer any questions.
Were there any questions?
If there are no further questions, I move approval of the student meal prices for the 2024-2025 school year as presented by Mr. Bowles.
I'll second. It's a tie.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Bolts.
Thank you.
Next, we have the approval of the 2016 and 2020 capital construction project change orders. Mr.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Dr. Taylor and members of the board. I am here this evening asking approval of 4 individual change orders over 3 different projects. Those change orders are change order number 002 to Skillman Davis Joint Venture for North Central Phase 2 project. Change order number 003 to Temperature Control Services, the Eastwood Middle School project. Change order number 009 to Shield Sexton Harmon Joint Venture for Nora Elementary. And change order number 010 to Shield Sexton Harmon Joint Venture at Nora Elementary. The total impact of those change orders is a decrease of $69,298 for the 2016 referendum projects and an increase of $58,891.55 for the 2020 referendum projects. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
If there are no questions, I move we approve the 2016 and 2020 capital construction project change orders as presented by Mr. Boots.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have the approval of agreement for design services for NCHS chillers. Mr. Boots. That's a good one.
Thank you, Madam President.
Okay.
Yes, asking approval this evening. The capital projects team is asking approval for a scope of additional work provided by Schmidt Associates for the replacement of chillers number 1 and 2 at North Central High School. In July of 2020, the board approved the Master Professional Services Agreement for all secondary projects in the referendum scope. The document is attached to your board docs for reference. This amendment is in addition to that scope of the original agreement. A little bit of background on this issue. 2 of the existing boilers were reconditioned at the beginning of the high school referendum project with the intent of extending the useful life of the equipment by up to 10 years, or estimated up to 10 years. That work was successfully completed before the high school project got underway. Unfortunately, shortly after the expiration of the warranty for the reconditioned units expired, chiller number 2 experienced a catastrophic failure and was unrepairable. The incident was reviewed with the conditioning agent train and determined that the failure was not covered by the warranty. To be diligent, the team and the maintenance team examined thoroughly the other operable chiller, what we term chiller number 1, and determined it was in operable condition. We could indeed serve the school. So this scope of work includes the engineering and architectural fees for replacing the older piece of equipment. For replacing the chiller number 1 as an alternate bid item, so we can make an informed decision as to whether to replace that piece of equipment, funding allowed when we get the bids. And hopefully not be in a position, have to be in an emergency response if that older piece of equipment shall fail as the other piece did. So all of these decisions are, of course, strongly influenced by budget considerations. We do have an appropriate amount of money set aside within the referendum budget for this item, both the design fees and replacement of the chillers. Answer any questions at this time?
I have, so,
Mr. Turner?
yeah, thank you. So I read this and then as you were just talking, I don't think I saw this the same way. So this is really just to design or figure out the design of replacing the chillers. This is not inclusive of replacing the chiller.
That's exactly right. This is just the design and engineering fees for replacing that chiller that failed and potentially the second additional older piece of equipment.
Right. And so, so when we went through the first phase of identifying that maybe we could extend that life by 10 years and you did the work to do that, this kind of like what happens alternate plan was not considered at that time, and that these might go out before the warranty through that.
We did. The decision at the time was based upon budget, as all decisions are heavily influenced, but also felt that extending the life expectancy of these two pieces of equipment by 10 years essentially gave us another life of that piece of equipment. Because there are actually 3 chillers at the high school. The third chiller, which is as large as these other 2 combined, had already expired at the beginning of the referendum. So we had to replace that one. That one was a very, very expensive piece of equipment. And the idea of reconditioning these made great sense at the time. As luck would have it, this piece did not last as long as anticipated.
Okay, I'm done.
Ms. Fry?
This is a dumb question,
No dumb questions.
because, I mean, I obviously wasn't around during previous conversations about chillers and whatnot. But I see $120,000 just for design work, and like, I'm thinking, I think about when I replaced my furnace and air conditioner and, whatever, like, can you give like the really dumbed down layperson's version of why does it cost over $100,000 just to plan for a chiller?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question because it is very complicated. Most people, as my experience had been, is with your home or maybe a small building where it's a single unit and you pull that unit out, you put another unit in and fire it up. Well, these units are the size of a Volkswagen minivan, and they sit in a mechanical room about this size, and there's 3 of them side by side, all interconnected with 6, 8, or 10-inch pipe that flows through them. It goes through all kinds of different other types of equipment. So the engineering for it to work with the new unit, that was the other complexity that we have. The new unit that we replaced is, I'm going to use the term first generation now, equipment, and operates at a very, very high level. The renovated pieces of equipment that we had were older technology and operated at a very low level. So that made it extremely difficult. And it's a very complex issue, frankly, outside of my expertise, but that is how I understood some of the engineering complexities. The other item that we are considering is this is really in the weeds, but these units are stacked front to back to the entry to the room. The one that failed is in the back. So we have to completely dismantle the one that is still functional, move it out of the way just to get the old one out. That's why we said we're going to take it down, we're going to disconnect it. Let's see if we have the funding available to replace both of those 20-year-old units, not have the risk of this one failing again, get 3 new first-generation units that work together, technology works together, controls work better. So that decision, of course, is yet to be made, depending on how the bids come back. But it is a complex operation.
Can I build on her
Of course.
dumb question? Just, okay. So I just want to make sure I understand what I'm possibly approving here. This amount is for design and engineering and the failed chiller, or we still then have to pay for at least one chiller after this?
That's correct. These chillers run, to give you an idea, we've allowed almost $3 million for this entire project. Chillers are that expensive and they are that complex. We are hopeful in these times. I use that term a lot. We are hopeful it's not going to run that much, and all the better if it does not. But we're in a position that it has failed. If this other second piece of equipment would fail now, we would be in a world of hurt. Because the one new unit could not serve all of the new high school, especially when the new administration and the theater arts addition come online. We would be below our needed capacity.
So then it's a judgment whether or not we replace the 2 older units altogether. And that's what we're waiting on to see what pricing on that is.
We will replace one of them for certain. It has died.
Yes.
The second one will depend on the results of the bid. If it's within our budget, we would probably recommend we replace that second one now. But that's where we are waiting. It remains to be seen.
And either way, the thought is to design as if we are going to replace that second one. Because to do this piece, if we were to cut this back and say only design for the replacement of the one that failed, maybe we save some money in the short term, but then we're going back to the drawing board later and trying to extend the design.
That is true. That's exactly right. And I would say it would be very little savings because we have to do 95% of all the design work anyway to make all of these pieces of equipment operate in tandem or operate together.
Okay, so I hate to keep beating this question up, but so I get what it's for. I get it's for design. We're going to figure everything out. But did we as a board, because we've made Schmidt Associates the only firm that could do this because we gave them carte blanche across the project, how do we know this fee? Is this a reasonable fee? I mean, is it just something, because are we just accepting it because they said so? I mean, it's just, let me back up. I totally understand we need to do something with the chillers. That is not the issue. This is kind of sticking in my
I understand.
throat a little bit.
I did reach out to several other companies and talk to them in very generic terms about what would a boiler replacement cost. They gave me some numbers that were in this neighborhood. This number did start a little bit higher. We negotiated it down about 4% on that basis, which I thought was reasonable. When we break it down on an hourly basis on today's hourly rates, the number of hours I felt was reasonable as well. And it would have been, in my opinion, much harder and take a lot longer for somebody that was unfamiliar with our mechanical room to come in new and do this work.
I figured that was part of it.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm good.
Okay. Any more questions?
If there are no more questions, I move that we approve the design service for the North Central High School chillers with Schmidt Associates as presented by Mr. Baker.
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And for our final action item of the evening, we have approval of bus storage demolition for Eastwood and Wesleyan Middle Schools. Mr. Boots.
Thank you. Once again, I come to you asking for approval for an item that is a kind of a convergence of unfortunate circumstances that we have incurred. I'm asking today for approval of a amendment to AIA document C-133-219, standard form of agreement between owner and construction managers as construction with the Skillman Corporation dated March 10th of 2021. Again, allow me to give you a little bit of background on this issue. We're requesting this approval that includes, the scope includes demolishing the existing bus sheds and then construction of new site drainage, parking improvements, and landscaping at both Eastwood Middle School and West Lane Middle School. Scope of work was originally part of the respective projects. Due to delays in securing permits for the construction of the new bus storage facility at the high school campus space, that was unable to be completed in time to make the transition of the buses to the new storage space. So we had to maintain the existing bus storage spaces at both Eastwood and West Lane for another school season. So we had to extract or take credit for the work on the Eastwood and the West Lane projects at the time. And now we are circling back and we must complete that work under a separate contract. This work was not anticipated when we negotiated the contract, the original contract with Skillman Corporation. The current planning is to bid this project in mid-July, approve shortly thereafter, mobilize in August, and weather allowing, have it finished by the time the weather turns bad in the fall. Estimated cost of this, including all in, is $1,066,825.
Mr. Fensel?
So it's going to be bid. This may not be the exact cost.
That's exactly right. I'm
That's
sorry, I should have emphasized that. This is the estimate. The estimate was
Oh,
attached as the final page. And it's probably strong because of the uncertainty of the bidding environment right now. Can't say I expect, but I hope that this number will be less than that. But this is the estimate that we've received from our construction.
So it's tearing both garages down and then repaving where they are.
Correct. We still have to complete some stormwater management improvements in that space, and then paving for new parking and some new landscaping.
I'm trying to compare it to maybe what we paid to demolish John Strange. And, make some comparison there. And I was thinking that was maybe 600,000 or something, 650, don't recall, but.
I don't know.
That's a while ago.
That seems a little low, but I don't know.
Low.
Yeah,
Well, these things look like they'll fall down.
that's true.
It'd be that hard to demolish
They're
them.
a little decrepit, yes.
We will all get out there and push on them. Maybe something would happen.
Right.
Mr. Turner?
My question is, understanding the need, but how was Skillman selected for this? They didn't do any work on those sites and,
Yes, mostly they had the capacity because of the ebb and flow of the work at the high school at this time. It was large enough, we do not have the resources to oversee it ourselves, and it's large enough, of course, we have to bid it, we want the competition, and that's required by state law as well. And it takes all of that document preparation, bidding process.
so this is the estimated cost, but there's still a bidding process for the work.
Yes.
But and also the timing. I'm just trying to understand why one was selected that didn't do any work on those sites, even though it was planned before, we couldn't get to it. But they didn't do any, they're doing work on North Central. And so I hear what you're saying. So it's a timing thing. They have the ability between the phases they're doing now to get it done. I just need to hear that.
And it's a relatively small project, not to minimize the cost. It's a relatively small project for a third party, if you will, or another independent construction team to come in and administer.
As long as the bidding process includes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this. So originally, the plan was, and I would assume the budget included the demolition of the bus barns at the two middle schools and the work to do that for the parking lot and the landscaping. So that was in the original.
Correct.
And then what happened was the permits became a problem because of because of the delays to the new bus barn behind North Central.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So, but then do we not still have that cost set aside in the original budget? This is on top of that?
Okay, yeah, good point. And I apologize, I did not clarify that. We did take the deduct on each project at the time. So we do have that to credit against this amount, yes. This amount does eclipse that by a bit because it's been a year or more, and in this world, a year is a long time. And like I say, it's an estimate at that. So it's about 30 to 40% higher than what we got back.
But there is something in the budget.
Yeah.
And so that stays the same. And then the difference is what you're
Yes.
seeking our approval on
Correct.
tonight. However, we don't know exactly what that difference is.
Yes. I apologize for not making that more clear.
No, I just have.
Okay, I understand, yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm still confused. What exactly are you asking for? Are you asking for the ability to bid it, or are you asking for the ability to do it, or both?
Both.
Okay, so if we approve this, we're approving you seeking bids and actually completing the work. Right. So I guess this is where I'm confused. If we've already chosen Skillman, what are we bidding? Are we bidding just for them to what they will charge us? Or are we seeking bids from multiple people?
Okay. Yes, good questions again. So Skillman is our construction manager. They
Right.
perform any of the work. They manage that. They'll manage the bidding process. They'll take those bids, generate a guaranteed maximum price for that work. That'll lock in the cost.
Right.
And then we'll come back to you for approval of that specific amount to spend on that. This is approval based upon an estimated amount.
To start the process.
Start the process.
Okay, I'm there now.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay.
No further questions. I move approval of the storage demolition of Eastwood and West Lane Middle School. And Skillman Corporation as the construction manager as presented by Mr. Boots.
It's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Boots. That concludes our action items. First information item, 2024 Panorama Family Survey Analysis. Dr. Pettigrew.
Good evening, Board President Davis, Dr. Taylor, and members of the board. So with your permission, we would like to combine those two information items because the Panorama Survey connects very closely with priority goal number 3. So our portion of that, we're going to present over to the other two.
Okay.
Okay, so over the past year, our district has made family engagement a top priority. We recognize that strong partnerships between schools and families are essential for fostering student success. So our goal is to ensure every student and family has equitable access to high-quality educational opportunities. However, we recognize that we have areas of need when it comes to fully partnering with all of our families, including those from underserved groups. To directly confront this challenge, you will note in Priority Goal 3 that we have established a District Equity Leadership Team, or DELT, which is comprised of administrators, directors, and leaders in the district. This cross-functional team is tasked with analyzing data on the family engagement, which is our Panorama Survey, through an equity lens, analyzing performance and behavioral data, and then collaborating horizontally and vertically. DELT meets monthly to discuss areas of concern related to culturally responsive practices that include intentional partnerships with our families and our community. The Equity Leadership Team got to work developing inclusive strategies to create more welcoming school environments and remove participation obstacles for our families. This includes efforts like providing translation services, flexible meeting schedules for conferences, transportation supports, and wraparound support from our counselors and social workers. They also looked at whether our current family engagement programming was responsive to the needs, interests, and cultural backgrounds of all of our families. We prioritize amplifying family voices based on the survey and creating opportunities through our work with PTO, PCN, and the Community Coalition. We've also continued the work from Zaretta Hammond's Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain, and this aligns perfectly with our Elevate framework and DSP. Under the leadership of Jen Dotson and Crystal Hazlitt in our Student Support Department, we have increased our understandings of the systems of support for students, which includes SEL, it includes tiered attendance interventions, and intentional SEL programming. We know that the elementary years are a crucial time for parent collaboration and partnership, and so our directors and their teams have adapted by providing flexible conferences as an example early in the school year. Flexible conferencing shows that our schools value all families and removes common barriers to engagement. A few key reasons that we do that is it accommodates working parents, addresses transportation barriers, it supports non-traditional schedules, as we have noted in the survey. It includes all parents and caregivers and increases our participation rate in the schools. Another of our key initiatives was to thoroughly analyze the feedback that we collected in Panorama. By carefully reviewing this data, we were able to pinpoint areas where we were excelling at engaging families and then identify areas of improvement. Jen Dotson will speak to that in just a second, but to highlight, Spring Mill Elementary recorded a triple-digit increase in parent participation in the survey from last year to this year. Allison Elementary saw an 82% increase in participation, and Fox Hill saw a 56% increase. So we are working diligently to get feedback from our families. Beyond just looking at participation numbers, the surveys provide invaluable feedback on what types of programs or communication that families prefer and support that resonates with all of our caregivers. By disaggregating the parent survey results by race or even home language, we can identify gaps in how we are partnering with serving different populations. And then, of course, through DELT, we took a deep dive and analyzed the parent feedback in ways that we can incorporate that in our upcoming school improvement plan. Our ultimate goal is to make every family feel welcomed and valued and included. And Jen Dotson is going to share a little bit about the Panorama survey specifically, as she and Dr. Alazar have worked side by side on this project.
As Dr. Pettigrew has shared, we utilize Panorama to gather parent and caregiver voice and feedback. This year, the Student Services Department utilized a communication and promotion plan, and that included collaborating with principals at a principals meeting, collaborating with our communications team, and the communication plan included social media, signs with QR codes for schools to use in their buildings, and data updates for principals on their response rates. We're happy to report that overall we increased parent participation as noted in Goal 3A. In spring 2023, we received a total of 1,647 family responses. And this year we were encouraged to gather responses from 2,008 parents and caregivers. As Dr. Pettigrew mentioned, we're particularly proud of Allisonville for gathering feedback from 49% of their families and Spring Mill for gathering feedback from nearly 37% of their families. Generally speaking, we saw favorable responses about parents and caregivers' ability to support their child's learning at home and the fact that schools communicate well with people from their culture. School climate is a category where we have seen a significant increase over the past year. In spring 2023, 64% of families reported a favorable response about school climate, and we've seen a 10% increase over the past year, and now we're at 74% of parents and caregivers expressing positive feelings about their child's school's climate. Another area of highlight is transportation. 87% of parents and caregivers responded favorably about their experience with our transportation system, and this number is up 18 percentage points from last year. The most common feedback we received about how schools can help parents better support their child was more frequent and timely communication from teachers and staff on their child's progress. This theme was common from all developmental levels, from pre-K to 12th grade. We know that we need to continue to work to collect and elevate the voices of parents from underrepresented groups. Going forward, we will work together to gather the voices of more parents of color and parents of English learners so that our response rates from various subgroups are proportionate to our student population. That's all I got. Any questions for me?
Any questions?
Let's make a comment. So I appreciate you giving this update and doing and seeing the numbers go up as far as the survey. I want to flash back to when obviously we have the strategic planning history document or what we're measuring. And in this particular goal, it's about what you just said at the end of your presentation about increasing contact with minority students and parents, et cetera. The impetus behind us, the board at the time, and then Dr. Whitson's team creating this was, how do we get more people involved other than, PTOs don't always touch every parent that's in, or every child that's in the particular school. How do we reach outside of that? So to see that you're starting to get more responses and the fact that you're looking at demographics just furthers the reason, I think, behind this of getting more people involved. So people feel safer maybe doing a survey versus coming in, whatever. We wanted to make sure that we're kind of in the community based on where your school sits across the district. So it's really a comment about thanks for doing it this way. And the more we see increases in that survey, the survey results it's great. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, well, it looks like we are at the end of our agenda. She combined them. Oh,
Yeah,
oh, uh-oh. I didn't mean that, Mrs. Smith. Yes. I would never forget you, I promise.
Responsibility.
I would never
God.
forget
Oh,
you,
it's
ever. I would never forget you. Okay,
Everybody's favorite.
priority 4.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This evening, you'll see in your packet, goal 4A starts on page 44. So if you want to follow along, you'll see where that is the develop and implement financial strategies that will best support instructional and operational needs resulting from the shifting paradigm of changes in local, state, and federal funding, including impacts related to COVID-19 and the reopening of schools. So the start of that is developing financial responsible budget management and strategies to address any kind of reductions if they come in revenue. And you'll see here at the end of the year, it kind of mimics a little bit from the mid-year where my department, Business Services, does a monthly review of the financial reports with all the leadership within my department. And then also throughout the year, I hold one-on-one budget meetings between myself and district leadership. So I meet with each one at a minimum of 3 times a year to discuss and look at their budgets and go through any of their needs they may have. I partner with Human Resources with staffing meetings and to talk about the budgets and needs that they may have. The board also is customary used to seeing a year-end report that I do here during the board meetings. And I have that attached in your documents also. An example of the budget projections that I work with each of the buildings with and departments, which I call building-based budget worksheets. And as a matter of fact, I've been hot and heavy in the last 3 days, meeting with every principal within the district to review all their amounts for or projections for 2025. Believe it or not, this is June of 2024, but we're already working on the calendar year 2025. And Also, you'll see in there that we've talked about over the last couple of years when we had our declining enrollment to creation of a long-range budget reduction plan to put on that shelf in case we ever need it. Those will be completed in the 24-25 school year. So next mid-year, I'll bring back that draft for you and then to have finalized by this time next year to be able to have in our pocket in case we ever need to resort to something that in the future. The reason being is so we're not in the heat of a moment of any kind of reductions that might happen from the state, that we already have a plan in place to combat those. And we have a long drawn out range plan to be able to assess during that time. Also, the board is used to evaluating our current spending methods and trends, and that's by way of preparing the monthly and quarterly financial reports that are given to the board on a quarterly basis that you're used to seeing and that I present at the board meetings. And then also conducting the year-end financial presentations that we talked about. We do that every February. And all the strategies to retain and recruit staff, like we talked about earlier in tandem with Human Resources with Dr. Kaiser. And we have done several wonderful things over the last couple of years where we've done our big restructure in transportation, our 3-year routing contract that we have with Transpar. We have a mentorship program for our transportation leadership. We have district-wide incentives that focus on key hard-to-fill positions, such as IAs, transportation, child nutrition, custodial, and maintenance. You see that in 23-24, we had our 2% increase that we were able to provide for classified staff. We still have our $1,000 referral bonus that we provide for those. And then we also are continuing with our milestone bonus, where it's AKA longevity bonus, where they receive money for their years of service here at Washington Township. And then, of course, we had our minimum hourly rate increase in the summer of 22, where we had our minimum amount being $15. So we were able to jump ahead of some other districts with that and be able to afford that, which has worked very well for us. Other methods Dr. Kaiser has talked about in preparing and posting on billboards, job fairs, radio ads, and things like that. And one of the major projects that the Business Services and Human Resources Department has been working on for at least 2 to 3 years was that equitable streamlining that we did for the employee reorganization effective for the 24-25 year, where it aligns work calendars, paid leave times, retirement offerings, and insurance benefit offerings. Instead of it, I think Dr. Kaiser used a reference of spinning the wheel for a long time in the past. Now we have where if you are an employee that works between 20 and 30 hours, it doesn't matter what group you're in. It doesn't matter if you're a IA, if you're a child nutrition, if you're a transportation, it doesn't matter. It has a simplistic way of recording. Everyone gets those same benefits in that bracket. The next 31 to 40 hours for a school year gets, X. And then it goes on and goes through all the way through our administration staff. So we have all that is going to be effective for our 24-25 school year. We're really happy about that. For instance, one of them is holiday pay for our IAs and some of our other groups that didn't get it before. So we are able to offer that and streamline all that. So that was a huge project, and we're really proud of that and to be able to offer that for our staff for retainage and such. Next, you'll see where we have been given regular updates on our CARES ESSER grants. So we had CARES 1, we had ESSER 2.0 and ESSER 3.0, and you'll see those amounts in your document also. CARES was completed in 2022, ESSER 2, 2023, and ESSER 3.0 is due to its completion this year in 2024. Still working on master equipment replacement plans, working with the athletic directors at all the secondary levels to ensure that we have a replacement plan in place for whenever they need regular maintenance on their equipment or replacement of any kind of parts or full replacements also. So we want to make sure that those are all built in the budgets for the future considerations. And then moving on, I'll let Mr. Bowles come in as soon as I'm done with the Goal 4C, which is the monitoring of the operating referendum plans to ensure they support the district in the most effective way. And happy to report that these two are one of those where we prepare the monthly and quarterly reports presented to the board at a board meeting that states the revenue, the expenditures, and the cash balance. It's also included in our annual presentations that we hold for all the finances. And then strategies that we have determined that if the operating referendum expenditure plans to support the district in the most effective way is working in tandem with our executive leadership and adhering to class size ratios, looking at those and analyzing those each year through Dr. Kaiser and his staff, and then all the principals and leaders. And then the regular monitoring of those funds, and also the line by line review that I do during the budget season, which is starting right now through the fall, and looking at every line by line to see what else we can either fund or programs that we can support other than on top of the over 95% of that fund that is salaries and benefits of people. So we reanalyze that every year. And then last but not least is the ongoing discussions with that budget reduction plan that I talked about, and that we will be presenting that in the next school year for you. So that is what I have on my portions of Goal 4A and 4C. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have before I turn it over to Mr. Bowles.
That's right. On the
Lots of pages.
the streamlined and
Yes.
equitable employee
Yes.
organizations.
Yes.
I assume at this point, since it goes into effect in July, has that been kind of rolled out to all the staff? Like they've
Yes.
seen it, they know.
Yes, Dr. Kaiser and his staff did a great job in creating all the communication lines. They even created information that was uploaded to each individual employee's portal to let them know what group they had landed in. And we've vetted some changes that was great, that came back, because of course you're working on 1,800 line items of employees. There's bound to have some changes. So they were instrumental in getting and communicating that information out to the staff of anything that needed to be corrected or revised.
Is there I know it's a very complex document. Is there any kind of overview document?
Yes, there is.
Can you share that?
Absolutely.
Maybe it's already been shared with us and I missed it somewhere, but.
Yes, we
I would
have
love
a
that. Only
summary of
because,
that.
Like, as you know, IAs have reached out to us, like,
Yes.
it would be nice for me to be able to look at something to say like, oh, what benefits do IAs?
Yes, we have a 2-page document that we had originally in, but we will go ahead and put that again in Word docs for you guys and share that. And we also plan on sharing that to all of the leadership and the front office people, so they'll have that for being able to promote our district.
I missed it, I'm sorry. I know I'm.
No, we've done it several,
I know
this
I'm
has
on
been a 3-year plan, so no.
list.
We've had a lot of documents in there.
Okay,
No
well,
problem.
I would love if some summary or overview could be
Great.
shared with us, just so we have. the-
Absolutely.
That was all I had.
Would be happy to. Anything else? If not, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Bowles.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to go over 4B, kind of right in the middle of those two group goals that Ms. Smith just presented on behalf of Ms. Britton Smith, who could not be here tonight. But I'm very excited on behalf of her and the operations department to present on the end of the year QAR goal 4B, which is executing construction referendum projects according to timelines and project budgets. So the first one that you'll see there is maintaining and following existing project timelines and project budgets. I know that Mr. Boots often will give updates on project progress throughout the year and throughout the course of the projects themselves. But at the end of the year now, we are to the point where we are very excited that Nora Elementary is 100% complete. And Fox Hill is 100% complete. That means that all of our elementaries have been completely renovated and are done, which is very, very exciting. We held Nora's rededication ceremony, and it was another great moment marker in this whole process. And then Fox Hill's rededication will be August 22nd at 5 p.m., which is in coordination with one of their back to school events. So we're looking forward to that. North Central Phase 3, that's the bulk of the work at North Central. It's basically North Central High School itself and the renovation throughout the entire space. And we are about 20% complete with that. At this time, North Central Phase 4 is outside athletics, and we are about 45% complete. The press box for the new football stadium just went up recently. And we're excited to have that new stadium done and in place and used for the start of football season. Fall. We have JEL is next as far as the design process. They are 100% complete with design, and we expect that project to mobilize in terms of construction starting in the spring. The WT Washington Township Services Center, also known as the former home of Northview Middle School, is going to be, we're about 75% complete in the design process. It is going to be out to bid in September with predicted mobilization of construction, maybe October. And then obviously that will continue to house True North Academy, adult education for now, and the employee clinic. The next goal is developing a systematic approach for reviewing and evaluating scope within project plans. And you'll have a link there that's going to take you to the part of our district website where we continue to post a robust amount of information in terms of project progress updates for the community and everyone to keep up with and view. The next part then goes through the budget tracking documents that you have access to. This is an ongoing project within our capital projects team, but also in collaboration with Smith and the business services department, and just making sure that we're on track financially. That a lot of that is also tracked in Procore, which is the next part of the goal. That implementation began in 2021. It is fully implemented at this point. We are continuing to use that as a tool to track both progress, but also documents related to the renovation process and budgeting. And as we continue to close out some of those projects, the budgeting becomes more and more clear as to exactly where we are, which is also very exciting. And then we have the project summaries evaluation documents link there, and that's going to show our commitment to the community. When we passed the 2016 and 2020 referenda, there was very specific things we committed to, and that outlines now on the tail end of these renovations for some buildings that how we've implemented and kept those commitments throughout the process, and aligns all of that in those documents for each building. And then we will continue to work on those for Nora, Fox Hill, Northview Middle School, the high school, JEL, and the services center. We will have ongoing design meetings with construction partners to finalize design for those that are not done yet with the service center specifically. And then we have lastly, the last part of the goal is to prioritize future projects, including the source of funding and timeline. And so we have developed, we've spent a lot of time on this recently, developing really detailed maintenance plans, long-term maintenance plans that outline what to do 5 years, 10 years, 15, all the way through in terms of keeping up with maintenance for all of these projects that we've been investing so much of our capital assets into. And so even with Willow Lake and Clearwater, we are at that 5-year mark. And so we're already using those maintenance plans to go back to those buildings and say, hey, we need to update certain things or redo certain things because it's hit its 5-year life. And so that's going to continue to be a super, super helpful document moving forward. And obviously, we'll have to populate those with high school JEL and transportation and the services center as we continue with those projects. That was a very quick overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Turner?
It's a real quick question. So on the topic you're just talking about, and maybe it's a Mrs. Smith question, but as I look at the capital projects budget tracking document, is that update? So you just heard Mr. Boots, and as he does most meetings, either going to deduct or he's going to ask for more money. Is that updated in like aggregate, or is it like if we get a deduct for 2016 referendum, do you go back in and then and move numbers, or I shouldn't say move numbers, but change them and adjust them based off of what we receive back? So this is up to date as of now? Okay, so but it doesn't tell me it was a deduct or a additional charge, does it? Because I couldn't see deduct. It nets out, so the net is what we should look at. And how do you, it's probably way too detailed for 7:45, but how do you, if I were to try to track how much we've deducted in total versus how much we had to do in additional spending, how is it just a matter of it comes out to the balance?
The Procore system has an in-depth behind detail that they look at. So we meet on a regular basis. We have a construction leadership team. And then I meet on a regular basis with Mr. Boots and the operations team also. And we go over those details of all the budgets. I actually then take that, I look at our cash flow that's left and what we need to still offer and still sell for all of our referendums to make sure that's balanced. And so we do that, if not monthly, every other month.
Okay.
So we do that throughout the whole process.
So it's in Procore, so
Absolutely.
it wasn't in this particular.
Right. This is just the net, the balance, but the detail down to the gritty is in Procore.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry. I'm gonna keep this.
I know. We've already broken my record of under an hour. Thank you, Mr. Porter.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
That concludes our agenda. Anything else for the good of the order? I will,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
All right.